Ducks are some of my favorite birds to watch in early spring because they get very active so quickly in the season, and they have a huge variety of really cool behaviors that are super easy to see, and they're just so flirtatious and fun to watch. So in this video, we're going to highlight 6 duck behaviors, things that you can look for in your local ducks in early spring, and we're going to specifically look at mallard ducks in this video, but these behaviors are also basically identical to many of the most common and abundant dabbling ducks. These are ducks that feed in shallow waters and dip their heads underwater to grab food, sticking their tails up above the water while they feed. So dabbling ducks like the American black duck, the American Wigeon, Gadwalls, Pintails, and Teals can all be seen doing a lot of the behaviors that you'll see in this video. So anytime we want to study the behavior of birds, including ducks, one of the first things that we want to look for is the difference between males and females. Ducks are a really great place to start if you're new to discerning between male and female birds because these differences are very distinct in ducks. The general rule is that the bird with the more showiness and color and unique features is going to be the male, and the more brown, plain-looking duck is going to be the female. So with mallards, the male has this really obvious shiny green head and white ring around the neck. The female is this kind of plain-looking brown color. And this is most obvious when you get to see a male and a female together, like a mated pair, because you'll see 2 ducks that are obviously together, but they have very different plumage. So identifying the males and females is the first step towards interpreting their behavior because a lot of what ducks do in early spring has to do with courtship and interactions between the male and the female, or the male with other males in the case of territorial behavior, and I'll show you an example of that coming up in this video. So the next thing to look for is courtship displays. Ducks have a very long and extended period of courtship that starts all the way back in winter, and they have a huge variety of behaviors that they do to attract mates. They will flip their tail feathers, they'll shake their wings, they will dip themselves into the water and bathe. It's a lot of activity that when you first see these displays, you might not even realize that it's part of courtship. You might just think it's a duck doing some random duck thing, but all these little behaviors are designed to get the attention of their potential partner. These displays are extremely common in both partnered and unpartnered ducks, and as soon as you start looking for this, you will start to see it all over the place. It's a very obvious behavior and adds a nice level of enjoyment to the viewing experience of ducks, like these mallards, because you really start to see that they're such playful and flirtatious birds. One thing that could be a bit confusing is when you see ducks dipping and dunking themselves in water. This could very easily be confused with feeding behavior because we can't see what happens underwater, but it's important to really remember that, as I mentioned at the start of this video, these are dabbling ducks that we're talking about. So when they're feeding, you will see their feet and tail sticking up out of the water. And when you see other times, these ducks are actually dunking themselves underwater, and they might even stay under for a short period of time. That's not a feeding behavior. That is actually a courtship display, or at the very least a bathing process, and it's often done to attract the attention of the opposite sex. Now, another thing you can watch for that's a little bit more subtle is unpartnered males. There are times when you might see a male duck swimming alone and making a lot of these courtship displays, but they don't have any partner with them yet. So you can see both courted pairs of ducks in the same pond as unpartnered males. And if the unpartnered male comes too close to the female of a partnered duck, her mate will respond in a protective and territorial manner. So you can see how this lone male mallard is swimming towards the other pair. As soon as he gets a little bit too close, this other male makes a beeline right towards him and gets between that male and his female. There's no vocalizations, there's no actual fighting, there's nothing really too distinct, but he's responding to the challenge nonetheless, and the unpartnered male respectfully swims along his way. Of course, the most exciting behavior to look for in ducks during early spring is the mating dance. You can see them swimming along and they're dipping their bills into the water and letting the water cascade back down from their bills in this very rhythmic and synchronized way, watching each other very attentively. Then the female stretches her neck out and the male actually kind of grabs on and pushes her head underwater, which seems like it could be a bit aggressive, but the thing to remember is that these are ducks, and so they're very comfortable being underwater. They're used to having their heads underwater, and it's quickly followed by the male doing his victory lap where he stretches his neck out and swims around in this very enthusiastic kind of way as the female dips herself in the water, washes her feathers, flaps her wings, and makes some general courtship displays while the male is off to the side shaking his tail feathers. Some of the mating done like this in very early spring is probably actually just part of courtship. They're not actually breeding every time that they mate, which means it can be fairly common to see this behavior. So another key thing to notice when mating is finished is that the male will actually stop dead in the water for a short time and just watch the female for a while. He's watching the female because she's going to make a particular call that I like to call the following quack. And it's this classic quacking sound that pretty much everyone would probably recognize as a duck call. This sound is actually only made by the females in mallards, and what happens is the male is very attentive to this call, and as the female makes this quacking sound and swims away, he will follow her. This is the sound the female makes when she's searching for where to build the nest and wants the male to follow her. So pay attention to where the ducks go when she's making this call, because it could lead you to their nest location. If you go sit by a pond that has some dabbling ducks like mallards in very early spring, you will very likely see many, if not all, of these different behaviors that we've explored in this video. And it's a really amazing way to take a bird that pretty much everyone has seen before and take it to a deeper level of appreciation, a deeper level of understanding, and get to see into the lives of some very cool wildlife that live all around us. Ducks are very accessible at local parks and nature trails. It's a great way to start off the year with some really fun bird watching before the peak bird watching season really begins. This all happens before the majority of songbirds are actually nesting and starting their families. So have fun looking for these behaviors in the duck world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.